Greetings, everyone. Smiley Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the UK Connection. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying, guys. I just ranted with my two good friends here for about 15 minutes before we started recording because I've had a shitty day today. But I'm hoping that these two fine gentlemen who always bring a smile to my face will throttle me and say, Pete, break out of it, snap out of it, that the whole Batman slap. Psh, let's go. So anyway, let me introduce Simon Bray and Steven Reid, the two-thirds of the UK connection are here with us as always on this power metal day, right? It's all about power metal, folks, from 1997. Our three favorite albums in the power metal genre from 1997. But before we do that, we have a little bit of business to attend to. Simon, what are you drinking?
Well, I don't wish to shit on your parade, but you were saying during that bit when I was really quiet about views and stuff. This isn't going to get you out of your view-ridden funk. Power metal from 1997. Whoa, there's a rabbit hole to go down, isn't it? I'm not selling this, am I? But do you know
He's
what? There
killed
we
it.
go.
We're a minute in.
Oh, woe is you? And then you turn up on a power metal show. Jesus Christ. Oops. Anyhow,
We're hoping for
I'm
the best. We're hoping for the best because when we announced it, a lot of viewers were like typing away. It's like, yes, power metal. So we'll see. So if only 1,500 of you watch this and respond to it, then we'll know. It's like power metal is not the, I don't know. The gamma ray show that Rich Catino and I did recently did fairly well, So hey, we'll see. We'll see.
fantastic. So
Yeah.
anyway, to answer your question, recently, as we all know, I went to the beautiful island of Menorca. Very nice it was too. First time I've been there, enjoyed it very much. So obviously, I've got a beer from Barcelona.
Nice. And Spain is not necessarily
Not
known for their beer, right? It's more of a wine place. So
My point is that my beer didn't come from Menorca, but hey, such is life. Though. I think I was attracted by the can. It's called. Here's my Spanish coming out. Cerdos voladores. Yeah, that's right. Flying pigs.
wow. Look at that.
Oink, oink, and it's a session IPA, and if it's not craft, we're not interested apparently, according to some people. So I'm gonna test it right now. I haven't got any RC thing to ask. If it was a power metal album, what would it be? Because I just couldn't think of anything. I've just been thinking about this all day. I just couldn't think of it because Stephen doesn't really like power metal. But anyhow, let's move on.
Spoiler alert. That's not really true. We'll cover that later.
Here you go.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Yes. Nice. It's definitely crafty. I could definitely um, draw now I've done it, or other craft related things that I couldn't do previously because I have no talent in that department whatsoever. Yeah.
Are you scoring it at all and you give it a number?
I'm going to give it a 3.41. Almost pie, but just, where if it was a pie, it would be a steak and kidney pie. Mm. But without onions, because nobody likes onions.
Steak and kidney pie is more than 3.41, though, is it not?
I'm just trying to think of a pie. Come on, don't put me
Okay, sorry. Put on the pie spot. Okay. Right. So
3.41 is
I've
just under 3.5, just under solid.
It's nice. It's nicely solid. It's fine. It's good.
It's almost solid.
Maybe I've been ranking these albums wrong all the time.
3.5 is very
I'll
solid, I think. 3.5 is
just
good.
go back through everything I've ever done and get back to you.
You got like 15 years experience ranking albums here. Come on,
No.
I
Yeah,
write 3.5. Stephen, back me up here. 3.5 out of 5 is generally a pretty good album, right?
yeah,
pretty
I
good
would say it's
one.
pretty good.
Yeah.
3.5, I'm
Solid
suggesting
record.
that if you like this kind of thing, you should be checking this out.
But it's not making the year end long list. No,
Right.
that's right.
Yes,
Correct. Correct.
correct. There we go.
And it
So
doesn't it doesn't
I've
make the featured CD of the day list either on the website. Did you guys ever know that? Did you ever know that? That
no,
those
I didn't. That explains why I never get anything on the front page. I need to start liking things more.
have I been keeping that a secret all these years? Oh man.
Oh, if I
Shame on
knew
me.
that, they'd all be 5 out of 5.
All right, so for everybody's watching who bothers to go to our seatranquility.org webzine, and for Simon and Steven's sake here, I change the CD that's featured on the main page every day, or I try to do it every day, and I pick from every album that's reviewed 4 out of 5 star and higher gets added to a list to be featured on the main page. Those are the special ones. Now Steven's like, I want to get more of those on the main page, so I'm going to start giving everything a four and up.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never
Actually, a
had
lot of
somebody
you.
put it
I
on.
think one of yours is on there was on there yesterday, I think, or something like that. So, or recently. Yeah.
Wasn't there yesterday. I was there the day before. It wasn't mine.
Okay.
It
Yeah, I
wasn't
know
mine.
because you were posting stuff. I know. I see. I see these things.
Anyway, beer.
Here,
Beer.
Innocent
Yes.
Gun. Look at that. Woo.
Innocent Gun. There you go. I like Innocent Gun. I've shown Innocent Gun on the show before. Not necessarily this one. This is a Caribbean rum cask aged red beer. I like this stuff. I've had this before. This is a bit of a cheat because I know I'm going to like it before I taste it because, well, I've tasted it before. We are in 6.8% territory. Probably explains why it's in a little bottle. Not always quite so obvious when you're doing this with it, but it's in a little bottle. And one of my favourite things is beer. Another is rum. So you put these two together and it looks fabulous, doesn't it? Then it's bound to be a winner. It really is. It's very smooth. It's quite creamy, but you do get that rumness. That's not a word, but you get that rumness at the end. Oh, it's fabulous. This is. I'm going to go. We're into about 4.3 here. That this would be featured on the homepage on the website.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, we get yes, Simon.
Would you say that it was the crypt crawler of the beer line?
That's today's feature,
Yes,
by the way.
absolutely. Of
Yes.
course I would. Yes, undoubtedly so. It's in that realm. It's definitely as good as that. I've never heard it in my life, but it's definitely as good as that.
There you go.
So
Good
by
old
death metal standards, that's pretty damn good.
There you go. See, if this was a death metal album, probably wouldn't be drinking it.
How many people at home are wondering what the fuck are these three talking about?
I think there's some that are sitting here wondering.
Yeah, probably. I will say I haven't had their beers in quite a long time. We can get those here. I don't know if I've ever seen that one, but I've had the ones that are done in the whiskey casks, and I've had a few of
Yep.
those. Yeah, Caribbean rum. Yeah,
I've heard this,
I
but
want
that's
to check that
because,
out.
in shock news for a Scotsman, I'm not really a whiskey drinker. Well, I
Oh.
say I'm not really. Don't like it. Don't like whiskey.
I don't drink it anymore. I don't drink it anymore, so I wouldn't go near it that beer anymore. But I would probably try that. I'm not much of a
Yeah,
liquor guy.
that's great. I like a dark rum. I really like a dark rum. And it's kind of got those notes running through. It's kind of got that bitter sweetness about it. Lovely. Really nice.
All right. By a show of hands, how many people remember this brewery in New Jersey that I've had a few beers from in recent weeks called The Source Farmhouse Brewery? There you go. People watching at home, there you go. So I have, this is the last of the beers from The Source that, yes, exactly. This is called Source of Wit, and it is a Belgian style wheat ale with orange peel, 5.3%. Very floral looking.
Nice.
See that? All right. Nice cans, kind of girly, right? A little bit. But anyway, kind of looks like this. It's lost a little bit of its fizz, but it's got a kind of a strange aroma. It's got a kind of a wheat beer aroma, I guess.
Well, wet. Would be a wheat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very orange peely. That's not bad, actually. Naturally unfiltered may contain sediments. Well, not mine, fortunately. Thank you. No little things crawling on the bottom, but yeah, this is pretty good. I don't know if I could try. I'm not an enormous wheat beer guy. I know I couldn't drink a lot of these, but it's pretty pleasant. I would give this a 3.78. Just past the solid mark.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Pretty good. I don't dislike it. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
All right.
Cheers.
So the year is 1997. It's pretty safe to say we are in full swing, mostly European power metal frenzy time, right? This is pretty much the mid 90s is when the power metal scene really, really started to pick up. And we've got what we did was we all went through some of our favorite albums and maybe investigated some new albums that are kind of considered power metal-y, in Simon's words, from this time period. And we've picked out our three favorites to talk about today. And I guess we'll do one at a time. And Steven, I don't know if, or Simon actually goes first. I don't know if either one of you guys wanted to add any more context before we actually start talking about the records, about why we're doing this, or,
Well, the reason we're doing this is because it came up on a show. We were speaking about, I don't actually remember what band or album, and the notion came up that we should do a power metal show. We put it to the viewers. We got a very positive response. I'm surprised we got so much because they all have to type like this because obviously they're all like this all the time. But lots of yes was what we got, and lots of power metal. So lo and behold, we are doing power metal. How we came about this year, that's a different question. We threw around an awful lot of ideas about how to do power metal and what we wanted to talk about. And I think we landed on this year because, well, we did. We wanted to avoid a certain band that involves pumpkins because we will be doing a least favorite wildcard show of Halloween in the not too distant future. It has been demanded for a long time now. We are going to do it.
Have I caved on that one?
You have caved on
yes,
that
you
one.
did.
You
It took you like over a year, but yeah, you did
yeah.
finally. Yeah.
So you did cave on that one. So we will be doing that. So we really went with the idea of avoiding a Halloween release year so that we could then not include them in the year that we were going to do. And we ended up on 1997 for no other reason than we did, I think, to be quite honest with you. As you say, Pete, this is kind of slap bang in the middle of when it begins to kind of go boom, or at least when we begin to really talk about it as power metal. What I've discovered kind of looking at this and going backwards and forwards is that there's lots of stuff now that we go, oh yeah, classic power metal. But we didn't call it that when it came out. This is one of these kind
It
of
was kind of like speed metal, just classic metal, right? Neoclassical metal,
absolutely
right?
yes.
Some
And
of
I
it,
think we're
some
kind
of it
of
was
on
even
the
called
cusp
prog
here.
metal early on, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're on the cusp here of I think when things become power metal and we actually really start to get power metal sound. And then in more recent years, much to my annoyance in many ways, that has then started to splinter and you start to get lots of different kind of semi-power metal genres, most of which seem to involve wearing costumes or having lyrics about pirates or various things like that. And that's when I kind of obviously love it, Simon. That's when I kind of start to go, not so sure. So it's an interesting thing. This has been an interesting journey, and I'm not going to talk too much about that until it's my goal because I will cover that when we get there.
And one of the things too, like we were talking about like what should the format of this be? Because obviously this is a new show, a new idea on the show. And we don't want to just replicate what we do with the AOR melodic rock thing because that really works. And this is kind of cool because we're picking a year and then we're each picking our own albums rather than these are the three albums we're going to talk about or these are the four albums we're going to talk about or whatever. So I think and if we overlap on stuff, that's fine because I think we haven't really discussed what we're choosing. That's not the intent. It's to come to these kind of fresh for everybody. So we'll see how it goes. This is the first one. We'll, if we need to tweak the whole format of it, we will. But I think it's I mean, we have people watching the channel and people watching the show who like power metal. So hopefully there's more than just a couple hundred of you. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right. So Simon, what's your first selection of the day?
Thanks for asking. I've just noticed that I look a bit like a floating head.
A little, yes, you do. A little, yes.
Like a floating Rick Wakeman. Yes, indeed.
You look like something that could have come out of a Power Wolf video, quite honest with you, but there you go.
Well, there you go. Excellent. So 1997, it would be fair to say that I didn't really discover power metal until after 1997. Definitely didn't discover any of these albums in 1997. 1997 was the year that I finally jacked in my shitty job, SHITTY, not in the city. went to teach training college, and everybody at training college loved Oasis. Yes, they did. And I do distinctly remember thinking, oh God, no. And then Be Here Now came out, and one guy said, this will be remembered as an absolute masterpiece for their all eternity. Well, that went well, didn't it, for him? So, yeah. So it was fair to say that, I didn't really enjoy the 90s in any way, shape, or form. And I only came to these latterly, shortly thereafter, but probably early in this millennium. And I didn't get the Halloween memo because my first choice is, and this is quite difficult to get hold of now, kids, so don't come and burgle my house. The first Iron Savior album.
That's right.
Yeah.
I did see that on the list released that year.
Okay. That was like, oh, look, yay. Yay, he's got so much like story to the things that I have chosen. And what could be more metal than like a furry bomber jacket kind of thing? And of course, we all remember, do we not, that Kai Hansen is, of course, in the earlier iteration of the Savior, as I like to call them, along with Thomas Stauch from Blind Guardian. Great record. I love this record. I do. I love all these three records, which is why I won't be playing you a little game at the end where I have to choose which is my favorite. Won't be doing that in any way, shape, or form. But this one,
Simon, I need to interrupt you, and I need to tell Pete that I can't tell you how many times Simon has said to me in the build up to this show, I will not be choosing which one is my favourite. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, even earlier today, I'm not playing that game.
just not doing it. Nope, not happening. Because I'm mixing the format up. But yeah, this and the early Iron Savior albums, because we all know that Iron Savior itself is a spaceship, don't we? Yeah, before Iron Savior decided to write practically every song about how great heavy metal is,
That's right.
because that's what they've kind of done for the
Yeah, those
last
last few
decade.
rounds, they're good, but yeah, it's exactly.
Yeah, they have they really went to town on this story of Iron Savior, which of course was sent into space to save the human race, and then it all went completely tits up because the humans did what humans did. And Iron Savior, I think, came back and went, "Oh my God, I've really got to like kill everybody." Just really, it was very confused despite being sentient. Well done, dog. Well done. Dog's just knocked everything over. There are some great tunes on this, especially the title tune, Iron Savior, where the Iron Savior itself just says, look what you've done, humans. You've really balls this up. It's so right, isn't it? So prescient. You know, I like the interplay between Pete Sealk and thank you, and Kai on Watcher in the Sky. It's just proper power metal album. It's even got a introductory song called The Arrival. See, not intro, because that's naff, isn't it? Go on, intro is naff. And is could you sing along to a song better than Brave New World of Biogenetic Design? No, I mean, they just don't write them like that anymore, do they? No, they don't. Where the perfect people live perfect lives and individuals get pulverized. Brave New World. Brave New World. Metal AF. Right. Yeah, and just a tremendous record. Their first and all my albums this week, the debut albums.
Ah, look at that.
All stood the test of time. And one of the problems that I'm going to say this now that I find with power metal, and it is arguably my genre of choice. My best friend always says to me, texts me on Christmas Day and says, did you get any power metal this year, Simon? And I go, yeah. It's what I'm known for. But there comes a point, I think, with practically every power metal band, they've all got the kind of like a thing, like Stephen was saying, be it I'm a pirate, I'm a spaceship, I'm a wolf, I'm a crusader, whatever. And there comes a point where you go, anything else to say, lads? I've kind of like seen and heard. I ain't say every one of those bands, but to me, just keep on going. And they were great, they are great, and they love heavy metal, and so should we all.
It's so funny because I know how much Simon loves that band, and I want, and I've told him before that one of these days we will do an Iron Savior album ranking. But every time I get set to think, all right, time to reach out to Simon, let's get ready to do this, they put out another damn album, and I'm like, guys, slow down, take 2 or 3 years off so we can do this fucking ranking already. It's like because it's every time I turn around, there's a new one, brand new Iron Savior. I'm like, didn't one just come out like 8 months ago? I'm like, holy moly. Anyway.
And they just re-recorded everything. Yes, they have. I'm going. Yeah. Oh, it's a box set. Oh yeah.
Too funny. We'll get to it though. Very good band. Very, very consistent band. If maybe somewhat formulaic, but a lot of these bands are like that. But I would say, because I don't have all of their albums. I don't have a lot of the early ones, but I have like a good chunk of the later ones, and they're all really good. They're kind of interchangeable, but they're solid power metal. I mean, they know how to do it. So it's a formula that works for them.
I just can't believe that they are not working their release schedule around this show.
Well, they should be.
I'm quite shocked by that news. I suppose let's be
But guys, do you know how many people watch this channel? Come on, take 2 years off. Let us know when the next one's coming, so we have more than enough time to do the album ranking. But then you know what's going to happen. We'll do the album ranking. They'll put out an album a year later, and then we'll get 50 people to be like, "So, can you guys redo the album ranking now that the new one's out?" I'm like, no. Anyway,
that is true. Right, so I'm known as the guy that holds the schedule for this show. Do you ever have one of those moments where somebody says, "Here's a good idea," and you go, "Yes, that's a good idea," and then you go and work on that idea, and you go, I'm not sure I can do this." Hi guys, that's this show. Right, so I really had a very, very small amount of things to choose from this. I mean, Pete did mention we maybe went and looked at new things and various things. I tried to keep it real because we're going to come back and do different years and various things along the way. And further down the line, I will have much more to choose from. But when I sat down to do this and looked through the albums, and there are quite a lot of albums in this house that I own, I ended up with 5 that I could choose from. And then when I really looked at it, I ended up really with 3 because one is Days of Purgatory from Iced Earth. Okay, and it was released in '97, so it qualifies. But it's all re-recordings and various things like that and remixes.
I considered that too because it's really good. It's really good.
It is really good. I'll be honest and say that this probably would have been my number 1. But the way that we always view things here, if it's not really from that year, it doesn't really count. So yes, it is from '97, but in reality, it's kind of not. So I thought, no, I can't use that one. Then the next thing I looked at, well, it doesn't qualify on 2 counts. One, and probably the main one, it wasn't released in '97, or at least it was everywhere else, but it wasn't in Japan. It was released in 1996 in Japan. Yes, Pete, Mr. Lemmy has been in my ear going, "That's not a 1997 release, Stephen." Okay, he's you and him back and forth on this. I'm aware of that. Okay, but I will cite.
And it's also borderline power metal, right? That's like because that's.
Well, this was the thing as well, is that I like to try and cross-reference not just what's in here, because there's not very much of that, okay, but also what the wider thought is. And I was surprised, actually. This hadn't even entered my thought until I started to look at some of these lists that are on the myriad of websites that are out there if you want to try and find what was released in what year, okay, because I don't do the digital kind of logging it all in Discogs things. All my records are written down because that's who I am. Hi there, okay. My name's Stephen. I'm a listaholic, right? So this, to me, this is a progressive mess of metal album, okay? So it doesn't qualify, but it's on lots of these lists as power metal. So I did go back and I've listened to it 3 or 4 times in the last few weeks. I kind of get it. I mean,
You
Russell
can no,
Allen is
you can
very
make the case for
POS
it.
on here.
You can
Yeah,
absolutely
and there
make
are
the case for
some
it.
songs on here where the riffs, you think, yeah, they're power metal, but it's kind of there and gone.
Yeah.
Then something goes, and you think, it's progressive metal, really, isn't it? So in bits, it's power metal, but it was released in a different year, so I can't use that either. So
So
there's also a theme developing here because you'll notice, Pete, that you said so much great European power metal out there. Well, that's two American bands. Okay. So my choice for the first one is Camelot, another one. Okay. So
hey,
this is Dominion. This is their second album. Um, and it probably has a slightly progressive edge about it too at this stage, to be fair. I would suggest that Camelot haven't quite found who they are at this point. It's not quite as Queensryche as they are on one or two albums around the early era. But with Mark Vanderbilt on vocals,
yeah,
that's always going to be there. Do you know? He was a solid singer. He's more in control on this album than he is on the debut. It's an interesting performance on the debut. It's not as bad as people make out, but I'm glad that he wasn't a long-term solution. No disrespect to the guy.
yeah. Roy Khan was
And
the answer to that problem, big
yeah,
time. Yeah.
undoubtedly so. Yeah. So this was his last album with Camelot. It was also Richard Warner, the drummer, who was one of the guys that founded the band. It's his last album with them too. And yeah, they are kind of looking for what they're going to be at this stage. It's a little bit more generic in places and a little bit more influenced than the band that they would go on to become. You hear kind of latter day, well, mid to latter day Camelot, because we're not that far away from kind of going, I think we've cracked it, guys. And as soon as you hear one of their albums, you go, I know who this is. Can't be anybody else. Not just the vocals when Can came in, but the guitar sound, the structures. It becomes very much a Camelot thing. That's not really where we are at this stage. I would call it a little bit still confused at this point. I mean, things like Birth of a Hero, it's very keyboard led. I can imagine that on a Dokken album. No bad thing for me, but it's not really power metally in that sense. And yet you do get stuff like Heaven, which is really kind of pummeling in your face. Rise Again is a little bit more nuanced, but it's really good. Then you get the really heavy metal titled Song of Roland. That is kind of like Iron Maiden for me, and it really, really works. So yeah, Camelot to me would grow into themselves and the scene kind of after this album, to be honest with you. But this is a good effort, and that shows that this is me being very honest here. I could have gone out and found lots of albums that were great from this year, but from what I have owned and listened to over the years, this is my third favorite power metal album in my collection. Is it a classic? The honest answer is no. This is a solid album by a band that are clearly talented and are about to go places. So that's my first choice.
And a great album cover, I always thought.
And a great album cover, yes. I do also like that you kind of get the
Yeah.
schematics of it on the back as well. It's very cool, I have to say.
And one of the great logos of any band we're going to talk about today, I think, right? Yeah.
Love a logo. You know I love a logo.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. All right. So as Simon noticed, I turned my Prezi app on because of the crazy day that I had today. I wasn't able to pull a couple of my CDs, which are buried in a closet that probably makes Simon's closet look very organized. So, but I do have all of these today, but I only have one to show on physical. So let me bear with me a second, folks. This Prezi app is so slow. All right, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There it is. All right. So my first pick for today is obviously now from 1997. The band is Tad Morose. So this is a Swedish band. This is their third album. It's called A Mended Rhyme. This also happens to be their first album with brand new singer and a guy who's done a lot of things after this, Urban Breed. Many of you might know that name. He's played with a lot of power metal bands, done some prog metal, he's done some solo stuff. He has been well traveled. He's notorious for never staying anywhere for too long before he's ready to go do something else. Now, the one thing, this is a really interesting band. Their early albums, including this one, they border on prog metal at times. There's like, they're a band that they don't really stick to one style, especially early on. Their later albums are definitely more straightforward power metal. This is like it's power metal, but there's also a little bits of prog metal in here as well. It's very dramatic, big riffs, plenty of keyboards, and I would say Urban Breed his vocals on this album might be some of the best of his career. I like a lot of things that he's done. He's amazing on this album. He's really, really good. He does that kind of soaring, higher pitch thing. He does the more angry, kind of snarling stuff, a little bit of everything. Title track is excellent. There's a song called The Traitor of Souls, which is really, really good. The Dragon Tide is you were just talking about Camelot, right? This whole kind of symphonic kind of power metal, a little bit of prog type of thing, really big orchestral swells and big riffs. The Dragon Tide is just like that. Guest of the Inquisition is another epic track. I think there's like maybe 4 songs on here that go over the 7-minute length. Really, really good. Again, it's a mix of symphonic metal, classic metal. There's 1 or 2 tracks that have a little bit of doom in them as well, and it's got some prog as well. Nothing on here is too speedy. There's really no speed metal on this, which I know is a part of a lot of power metal bands, not all of them. But I think if you like your power metal that's a little on the darker side, that encompasses like some different elements instead of the straight, double bass drum, type of thing. It's definitely not from the Halloween camp. It's more, I think Tad Morose borrows a little bit from Iron Maiden's like late 70s, late 70s, late 80s, early 90s material, and maybe a little bit of the more up-tempo stuff from Candlemass. And it's definitely, considering it's Swedish, it doesn't sound anything like Hammerfall. Really doesn't sound like the German bands either. They're coming from different directions here, but I think it's really, really good. It's definitely a classic album from this year, and they're not a really well-known band, but they've been around forever. So Tad Morose, Amended Rhyme, I would highly recommend it. It's really, really good. Holds up really well. I hadn't heard it in a long time, and was playing it again, getting ready for the show, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's just as good as I remember it. Really, really good. So that's my first pick. Back to
I
something.
like my power metal to be happy and upbeat, and I like it when my bands really commit because you know what, power metal can be a bit stupid, can't it? We can all agree on that, can't? I know we can all agree on that. You can, and I like you occasionally like
I'll drink to that.
a nice logo, and I do like a nice piece of artwork.
Yes.
What I never ever buy into though are concepts. I didn't really read the Iron Savior thing really ever. My oldest son did, really got into it. I have never read the story of Alba Lord or whatever is behind Rhapsodies. That's Rhapsody, kids, not Rhapsody of Fire. Oh no,
Right. That's the
Rhap
original. The
Rhapsodies.
OG. The OG. There you
Legendary tale. Oh God, I love this record because they just commit. They absolutely 100% commit to everything they're doing. I mean, just look at Lucas Cirilli there. Look, that's the Bob Catley years. Um, look at the hair. Which one's the drummer? Oh, he's the one with the sticks. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
this is
And
before they started having swords and knives and all sorts of
Fabio's got a
things.
sword.
Oh,
Yes,
there you go.
yes,
All right.
does. There you go. And look, they've got a little Tolkien-esque kind of map, which of course, includes the Forest of Unicorns, doesn't it?
Of course it does.
I nearly
Stephen,
spat there.
stop sniggering at the black. The actual song, Forest of Unicorns, right, makes Blackmore's Night look like napalm fucking death. It's just absolutely insane,
Uh,
but played completely straight, I assume. It sounds hard, like it sounds like it was recorded in the 1500s. It sounds like it's got harpsichords and everything else, but they just commit with everything. And then towards the end of the record, they come up with the world's greatest song, "Land of Immortals." Oh, what a tune! What an absolute tune. And the bit when the keyboards are interplaying with the guitar and you're just waiting for it to come back in and the Land of Immortals chorus, it's just like, whoa, I'm alive and I'm glad to be alive and I'm glad to be walking my dog in the dark and other shit stuff that happens. You know what I mean? Not that, not, but thinking who's around the street going, oh, it doesn't matter because I'm Land of Immortal. Yay, excellent. Yeah. So come and attack me. I've got my fist with me. Yeah, it's all, it's just absolute joyous. It's joyous. It's 100%. We look, we don't care. We don't care. We're doing this completely straight. 20 years, 26 years later, I can absolutely take Rhapsody of Fire and go, yeah, I've heard that millions and millions of times. But for a brief period, well, quite a long period, actually, Rhapsody were absolutely brilliant. Of course, they weren't power metal, were they? No. They were Hollywood cinematic metal, weren't they? Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And were they
Yeah,
called epic metal too for a little bit, right?
absolutely. It's interesting how many bands say we weren't, we
Oh,
weren't heavy metal. No, sorry, power metal. No, we're traditional metal. No, really. Okay, stop singing about dragons and shit like that. You were and you are power metal, and just I would suggest that all of my choices are absolute genre classics, but this is Dog Stranglers.
Yeah.
Look at it.
what other genre could possibly have a forest of unicorns? I
None.
mean, you're not going to find it in death metal. You're not going to find it in kind of Bay Area thrash metal, are you? It's like we're not power metal.
Yeah. That's a great pick. So, I wrestled, just spoiler alert, I wrestled between that and my Tad Morose pick for number three. But the expert program director in me said, I have a feeling that Simon's going to pick that one. So I don't want to steal Simon's thunder because I'm sure he could tell a better story than I could about that Rhapsody album, which is really good. And I will say their next album is even better, even better.
It's a brave call, but it's a call that you can definitely argue.
Yep. Do you remember, Simon, do you remember like when those albums first came out? I remember like the first time I heard those albums, I was kind of like, this shit is so over the top, it's ridiculous, but I love it. I mean, like
Yeah,
the gall of them to do stuff like that. It's just like, I mean, they took like what Manowar was doing, and they were like, screw those guys. We're gonna take it to the next level in like a major way. It's
I,
so
I just
so cheesy and so fun.
I just distinctly remember hearing Emerald Sword for the first time and thinking, what the heck is that? And why is it so completely and utterly awesome? Why on the live version does he sing Emerald Sow? Is it a pig? What's going on there? But yeah, what a what a band. Yes.
What's he saying?
Emerald Sow. Sword. Emerald Sow.
Okay.
Just saying. Yeah.
I think Steven needs to
I
go listen
mean,
to some Rhapsody, I think.
yeah, I mean, some people get put off by heavily accented vocals, don't they? Some people don't like the Scorpions. These people are wrong, but there is a heavily accented vocal on this one. But he went on to be angry, didn't he? That's always a good thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Always,
You went on to
always.
be angry.
Angra.
Oh, angry. Sorry.
Angry power metal doesn't work. That's just
I actually knew you said it. It's
Unless
okay.
you're Primal Fear, then it kind of works. But it's not too angry. It's just kind of tough. No, yeah.
I definitely feel like an outlier today. Okay. Because I was going to save this until we'd all at least done three, and you'll have yours to go, Pete. I'm also mentioned to Simon earlier today. I'm quite comfortable and confident in the knowledge that one, I won't cross over with anybody, and two, there's a good chance I will have heard no other albums that are mentioned on this show.
Okay.
I'm on a winner so far. Okay.
I would
I
say,
definitely
I would
thought you'd
say, I mean,
like
you love
a
Powerwolf, right? So I would say you like that kind of crazy over the top shit. I think you would really like these early Rhapsody albums. They're a lot
It's
of fun.
funny with Powerwolf. They tend to be an exception in my world because I kind of struggle. I mean, we've talked about Sabaton at length many, many moons ago, years ago, where going to see them live, it's fantastic. It's all staged nonsense, but it is nonsense. It's very enjoyable nonsense. And if you like Sabaton, the show's fantastic. It's brilliant. It's so much fun. But it's not a pinch of salt. I mean, they actually shove the cube of salt on stage first. So you've got to accept that and kind of go with it. I'm not really famed for that. I don't need to then take Sabaton home and sit with them and listen to them, kind of thing.
Yeah,
On
this is
stage,
different though. You
all
know what?
good.
On our last episode, we did the soundtrack episode last. You remember like how much you talked about how much you love the John Williams Star Wars stuff?
Mm.
Put that to metal arrangements. with like over the top shredding neoclassical guitar solos and a vocalist that's like so over the top. That's kind of what you're going to get with Rhapsody. I
Yeah,
think you
I mean,
would
I
really
haven't
like
heard
it.
it, so I'm not prejudging it. Put it that way. My choices are a little different from that, shall we say? Okay, so one band who kind of sound completely different depending on what era you come in and out of are Riot. Okay, this is Inishmore. They are definitely deep into the power metal stage at this point. We're probably past the peak power metal stage at this point too, if I was to be honest with you. But this is still really, really good. As always with Riot, they were kind of going through a hard time at this stage. They always went through a hard time. They were just one of
Yeah.
those bands that every time they turned round, something else went wrong. But there you go. So this was released in 1997 in Japan. Okay, 1998 in the US. So just before anyone says it's not a 97 release, it is. It first saw the light of day in 97. It was ready to go in 97. They just couldn't convince anybody outside Japan to release it then. Okay, this is also a band that went through so many reshuffles of lineup and various things. So we've got Mark Reale on guitars, obviously the mainstay, the main guy in the band. Mike Flint's also on guitars. Mike DeMeo on vocals. He's doing his third album with them at this stage. Pete Perez on bass, and the utterly excellent Bobby Jarzenbeck on drums, who is one of those kind of unsung guys. He's an absolute legend, phenomenal. And Simon, this is everything that you don't like. This is a concept album, okay? And it's based around the Irish farmer of the 1840s. I mean, it's not
Sounds like
cheerful.
a laugh riot.
It is not cheerful at all in that sense. It does also deal with myth and fantasy and kind of bringing in some traditional kind of myth and fantasy into the lyrics, and it plays on that too. It's also a band that don't stick with a logo, okay?
That's
It's
terrible.
also, and I get that it goes with the theme and it has the idea and all this kind of stuff. It's a really boring album cover, and I know there are different album covers out there for this album. Do you know what really gets my goat about this album cover? Is I know that this is obviously some craggy rock thing that's down here, but it really looks like the cameraman just was like this when he took the photograph.
It does.
It really does. It just looks like, really, that's the guy's index finger. No, but there you
That's
go.
really unimaginative. The whole thing is just like, what were
Yeah,
they thinking?
isn't it? It doesn't do them any favors. I mean, it's a reissue. It's got kind of all these kind of pictures and things of the
It doesn't
band.
even have their seal mascot on the front. I mean, come on. It's like,
No, it doesn't. It's maybe a good thing.
yeah, well,
But let's not get
possibly,
too
yeah.
deep into that either. Do you know? Musically, though, it's really quite interesting because they're trying to do something different with it. This is something, I mean, I'm four picks in now because my first two are discounted, but I only mentioned really them because there's a theme. I'm on my fourth US band here. Okay, so very much a theme for me. You guys are kind of going European power metal, and I know, Pete, your first one is not necessarily in that kind of not tunnel vision, but very much this is the European power metal sound. Tadmaros would appear to be somewhere outside of that. But I've always found the US version of power metal to be a different beast entirely. It's much more traditional based. It is much less, I don't know, as you say, over the top and kind of out there and using those kind of cinematic themes. It doesn't really do that. It's much more grounded and earthy, is what I've found. And this album kind of takes kind of traditional folk and Irish themes. If you wanted to know what Thin Lizzy may sound like as a power metal band, it's kind of here, to be honest with you. Blackwater, watching the signs, in places should I run, kind of answer that question that if Phil Lynott wanted to go and be in a power metal band for an album, some of it might come out like this. You get that kind of folk tinged feel. There is a bit of twin guitar play in there, but it's not like a Thin Lizzy album. I'm not going to pretend it is. But it is kind of that more kind of traditional stuff. I like Mike DeMeo. I think he does a great job on this album. He's
Good
not the
singer.
most expressive and out there singer, but he's perfect for this kind of stuff, I think. And he's really good fronting kind of the more energetic things like Cry for the Dying. I like the groove laden Red Rain, not the Peter Gabriel Red Rain as in REI. Anyway, and the more kind of folk flavoured Irish trilogy that closes the main album out, which kind of veers out at power metal as well, to be fair. This is not one of Riot's best albums, but that's because Riot made lots and lots of good albums, not because this isn't an excellent album. They just happen to have made probably five or six that are better than this, and I still really like this. So it comes highly recommended if you've not heard it. So that's my number two, is Inishmore by Riot.
I think it could be safe to say that probably with Thundersteel and everything afterwards, it's pretty safe to include Riot in the whole power metal conversation. Even their like most recent Riot 5 or whatever. I mean, so many different iterations, right? It's very much power metal, but like you were absolutely correct. It's that US power metal thing, which is a totally
Yeah,
different beast. There's these bands that like, them and Metal Church and Armored Saint and Omen. I mean, all these bands that kind of like they don't really fit anywhere. So we just kind of say, well, it's kind of US power metal because it's a little bit different. It's
yeah.
not like the European stuff, not like the Scandinavian stuff, nothing at all like that. But it's still, you can kind of,
Well, it's viewed on as power metal. It isn't necessarily, and nobody likes air quotes, isn't necessarily power metal.
yeah,
But these bands have been known for a long time as US power metal bands, and this era of, as you say, Riot really kind of onwards from Thunder Steel. I would say definitely now what they're doing. The last three were Todd Michael Holland vocals. I mean, they're power metal. There's just absolutely no doubt about that at all. But yes, to me, they're a power metal band, but they don't necessarily fall in line with what a lot of people would say. Well, that's the power metal sound. It's what we refer to them as. So yeah,
yeah. By the way, that new Riot V is or Riot 5 is damn good. I was listening to that at the gym the other day. I was like, man, this album's a banger.
they're a great band
It's not
again.
Fire Down Under, but it's really
Yeah,
good.
really good, really good.
All right. Well, my second pick is definitely right in line with everything we're talking about here. This is probably one of the poster children for this style of music. And as with Simon's first pick, we're going to go to Germany here for Gamma Ray, Somewhere Out of Space, their fifth album. So, of course, this is the band led by Kai Hansen, formerly of Halloween, right? Of course, he left Halloween after the Keys albums and decided to go start his own band, originally with Ralph Sheepers on lead vocals. And then he decided to once again take up the vocal helm again for the first time since Walls of Jericho from Halloween. So this is, and they have a lot of albums. For those of you who didn't catch it, I did a whole ranking the album show with Rich Catino recently on the Gamma Ray catalog. A lot of really good albums. A lot of these albums have been fairly newish to me because this is a band that I always knew about, listened to them a little bit, but never really dove into the catalog until fairly recently. I probably should have earlier on because I really like a lot of these albums. If you like classic Halloween, like the first like two or three albums or four albums, Gamma Ray is like right in line with that. So here, this is one of their better efforts, I think, one of their stronger albums. This ranked pretty high for me. Beyond the Black Hole is a terrific song. It totally rips. These guys do opening tracks really, really well. Pulls you right in. You got Men's Martians and Machines, kind of a crazy title, but it's a total ripper. No Stranger is kind of a little more like straightforward metal, right? It's not speedy. There's no speed metal here because these guys do the speed metal thing from time to time. Straightforward, crunchy metal, really, really good. And it's really catchy. Really good hooks in a lot of these songs. And Kai, I love Kai's vocals. I think he's really good on here. What else we got here? The title track is full on speed metal. The Guardians of Mankind touches on prog metal a little bit. So if anybody's watching and you grew up with those early Halloween records, especially like Walls of Jericho and maybe the first Keepers of the Seven Keys album, there's some stuff going on in those albums that are kind of prog metal-y, right? There's complicated soloing and intricate arrangements and sometimes symphonic swells and things like that. This particular track kind of goes down that avenue a little bit. And it just reminds me of early Halloween. There's a lot of early Halloween feels on this album, which ironically, like the first couple of Gamma Ray albums with Ralph Sheepers on vocals, didn't really do the Halloween style. It's once Ralph left and Kai took over the reins of vocals that the music started to kind of remind me a little bit of the classic Halloween stuff. But yeah, this is a really strong album. There's 14 regular tracks. And if you get, depending on which version you get, they always did really good covers. So they do a cover of Return to Fantasy by Uriah Heep on here, which is pretty damn good. Their covers are generally very, very good. So yeah, Gamma Ray, Somewhere Out of Space is my second pick. Very strong, very fun album. Back to something.
Excellent. Just before we move on, shall we have a little show of hands? Who's got their tickets to see the recently mentioned Uriah Heep?
For the farewell tour.
Yeah, football too. Who's got the tickets? Let's have a show of hands. Oh, we do, don't we? Yes, Stephen, we do.
We do.
And this makes us
I
happy,
haven't
doesn't
announced
it?
the US dates yet, so I'm waiting. I'll be going. Trust me, I'll be going. It's funny
The-
you brought that up because my wife, who doesn't know any of this stuff from anything, right? Like a week ago, she goes, I saw something on my feed. That band you like, Uriah Heep, they're doing a reunion tour. I guess that means you're going to see them again, right? I'm like, yes. That's all I'm gonna say. Yes. She's like, didn't you just see them? Yes. And I will be going again. So she don't know Uriah Heep
Outstanding.
from the hole in the wall.
I'm delighted with the three band bill. April Wine and Taiketo as well. That's delivering.
Is that what you're seeing?
That's what we've got over here. That's a lineup.
That's really how about by you, Simon?
The same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah,
Well,
it won't be
so
that here, I can guarantee you that. But my guess is they will and Heap is headlining, right?
Yeah.
My guess is they will headline with either an unknown band or someone that they'll unearth from wherever, right? Because I think the last couple times I've seen Heap headline here, they they've they haven't brought any decent bands with them. Usually it's like a local opener or something like that, which kind of sucks. I would love to see. I mean, April Wine, Jesus, I've never seen April Wine.
No,
Never.
neither have I. I'm genuinely excited for that as well. I was really when I saw the three band bill, it was Simon messaged and he was like, "Have you seen?" I was like, "Yes, I have seen. I need to go to that."
And where are they playing in Scotland? Whereabouts are they playing?
Glasgow. They're in Glasgow. In the King's Theatre unusually. I've never been there for I've been there for a theatre show. I've never been there for a rock gig. But
How
they
about you,
do seem
Simon? Where are you going?
kind of nice venues.
Bridgewater Hall, so we can all sit down.
See, it's a
Yeah,
sit down place for me as well. There you go. It's
yeah.
three bands. It's a long night. We're all old.
Oh yeah. I'm hoping for a sit down to read. Trust me. Yeah, oh, yeah.
I think Mick Box is hoping for a sit down too.
We're all so old.
Oh, we
Never
are.
mind.
It's funny because the
Here's
last
the-
time I saw them, they played with Saxon, and that was in a sit down place, but everybody stood anywhere, and I was like, I was grumbling the whole night. I don't want to stand anymore. I'm like, everybody was standing. I'm like, God.
I remember back in the day, people didn't stand. That's when I was grumbling.
I
Times may
know.
have changed now.
Yeah. Here's a band that I have seen on numerous occasions, and one of the reasons that I've always gone no to the Halloween ranking is because there's a band that I like a lot more than Halloween, and I think we all know where
I
I
know
know
where this is going.
we all know where this is going, don't we? And we've never ranked them, and just all those albums just sitting there with saying, Simon, we're all really good except Infected. Can you? No, Pete says no. And Stephen doesn't like any of them. So, no, here we go, But he did Pagan's Mind, didn't he? Yes, he did Pagan's Mind without Sam. Yes, indeed. But anyhow, let's move along. I'm not bitter.
Simon, I don't believe that you can find all your albums to have this conversation with.
Do you know where the Hammerfall ones are? I know because I saw them earlier today. Because I was looking for Iron Savior and I thought, oh, look at all those H's. Yes, because like it is, it's clearly Hammerfall, isn't it? Let that one at the bag, haven't I? Yes, this is an absolute, complete and utter classic, right from start to finish. It's so good. I bought it twice. Yes, indeed. That's
Arguably their best. Yes, indeed. It's a good choice.
this one comes with like kind of like second full live album to go with the original remaster of the original. Yay! Because Hammerfall do reissue everything about every 5 minutes. They really do. Do I say that? I mean Nuclear Blast or whichever record label they're on this week. This is just a solid gold classic. It really is. The Dragon Lies Bleeding. Oh my God! Sorry, the Dragon Lies Bleeding. Oh, the Metal Age. Hammerfall. We will prevail. I believe I'm just a child of the damned. Steel meets steel. And what I currently consider, because I've been listening to these a lot recently, the greatest song in the world, Stone Cold. Do you not do that? How's the weather? Stone Cold. Do you not do that? No, just me. Okay, excellent. No. And I took boy number two, who's quite. He's left the path of metal. He's a massive disappointment to me, he really is. But I had him in the car yesterday, and glory to the Brace came on it, and he went, I have not heard this for ages. I'm going to write a good sing along, all right, bonding session to glory to the Brave. 7 minutes and 32 seconds of it. I went the long way around to his house so he could hear absolutely all of it. This is just a great record, and one of the things that is a happy joyness of going back through these things is thinking, Oh, I'd forgotten that. I had forgotten that because they've had a relatively fluid lineup, haven't they? Apart from the main two, and Lord God, they really do. I can't remember, they really do look like fetuses without their beards and without their long hair and stuff. But on the ratio, look, they've got like drawings of them, line drawings, like they're in rainbow or something. I don't know why that happened, but yeah. Um, just so good. And you forget that the guitarist for this was Glenn Youngstrom, who had things to do with In Flames, and that many of the songs are co-written with Jesper Strömblad of In Flames. And you forget that Stefan Algren wasn't on this record. Oh, Magnus Rosen wasn't on this record. That's not really Hammer. Is it Hammerfall? I don't know. You think, oh, I forgot all that. And you go back and you think, yay. I'm pleased I've done that. I really am. But this is so good. Utter classic. And I think it really kind of like set the template for many, many bands to come.
Yeah.
Many bands who didn't have a particular shred of originality between them. And therein, I think, lies the problem with the genre. There's so many bands just sound the same, don't they? And they're just Hammerfall. You could say they make the same record over and over again, but they do it so well to the extent that I believe my good friend Steven Reid owns and likes the new one.
I do, yes, very much. I was bought blind on the recommendation of, I believe, a Mr. Simon Bray.
That's me.
That's it, absolutely. He was most disappointed that I did not buy the gold vinyl version, but as a blind punt, which I don't really do anymore because we don't have to anymore, do we? You don't have to do that. I thought I'm not going the whole hog and getting the vinyl version. It is very good. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I want the guitars just to be just a little bit higher in the mix for my taste, and that's another issue I've got with a lot of current power metal, where an awful lot of it seems to go. Well, there's the keyboards.
And there's the vocals. Where's the guitar, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that, to be fair, the Hammerfall doesn't do that. It's not quite as far to the outside of it as that. The guitars are there. I just want them to be the driving force, and they're not quite all the time. But it is an excellent album. It's really good. I am thoroughly enjoying it, to be fair. So yes, as always, Uncle Simon was correct.
This is true. Yeah. If you've never heard it, go find it, listen to it, get your fist ready to pump.
Well, it's interesting, Simon, because you're saying that what you've done is you've chosen three debuts for this year, okay? And you're kind of saying that what you've done is got three genre classics, and then gone on to say an awful lot of bands then use that as a template, and there's not been a huge amount of originality since then. I'm not saying there is none, but not a huge amount since. A lot of bands, and I do mean a lot, have come along and gone, that's a great sound, we could do that, and kind of forgotten to add a little bit of themselves to it. Maybe that's why the likes of Powerwolf do work, because they at least do something that makes you go, I know who that is immediately. Do you know? And over the years, if you go through the website, I have reviewed a lot of power metal and liked it. And I do like it. I tend to like most power metal that I hear. I don't always go back to it because I kind of forget who it was and who did it and all that kind of thing. So what I maybe need to do is come back and watch this show and look at what these genre classics are and go, see, this should have been my starting point. But as I've mentioned before on the show, the 90s were a confused time for me. I wasn't really, I mean, I was into metal, but it was very much traditional metal. And I was into lots of rock. And rock fell out of existence, really, or my rock fell out of existence. And I spent a lot of the later 90s trying to find what it was I liked, because it wasn't really there, or at least it wasn't getting released over here. Most of the bands that I liked at that point, you had to go and mail order their things through a magazine thing or phone a shop and go, can I get the new album by? Which was just a pain in the ass when we were working night
Yeah.
shift and all this
That's
kind of
what we
stuff.
had to do, though. Yeah, that's the way
Yeah,
it
you
was.
had to do this. So I just kind of lost. There are a whole raft of bands that came out in the kind of late 90s that are now viewed as real kind of genre cornerstones, not just in power metal. I had a similar conversation with George about progressive metal just this week, where we were talking about certain genre classic bands, and I went to him, I've never actually heard any Fate's Warning. And I mean, we're doing this by
I
messenger.
heard about that. He sent me a message.
Yeah.
I believe Steven never
There
listened
you
to
go.
one. Like,
Right? I
really?
could hear him fall off his seat as he read that. So all these miles away, I heard right? I knew that happened, and I mean, there was a pause before he replied. He was getting back up again. But there is that kind of late '90s, mid to late '90s. I really recent weeks have made me think I need to go and analyze what I bought and how much of it I've still got, because it wasn't this stuff that I'm now talking about and going, I really like this kind of music. It's a strange old thing, but there you go, Voyager Discovery. Right, my final choice, that I'll bring it back on to what we're talking about, is another US band. And this maybe tells you an awful lot about what I was listening to at the time as well, because it's Jag Panzer.
Oh,
Okay.
good choice. Yeah.
And this is the Fourth Judgment. So it's their third album, it's kind of their fourth album, lots of confusion. An amazing history around this time for this band because they released their debut 10 years prior to this. Then they came back, well, they released their debut then 10 years after that, sorry. They came back with an album that sounds nothing like anything they've ever done before or since. And it's what's commonly known as utter garbage, but it's worth having just to know how bad it is. It's one of those albums where you think, it can't be that bad. Everything else they've done has lots of merit. And you put it on and you go, oh, it's terrible. But anyway, there you go. That's Dissident Alliance for you. But by the time that the Fourth Judgment came round, Harry Conklin, the singer, was back, and people know him from lots and lots of different things. And they got a guitarist called Joey Tafola in the band, who is a shred guy. He's fantastic. Not that you would know from this version. Okay, this is a reissue, because after this album, Joey left, and Chris Broderick came in. So the reissue talks all through the liner notes about Joey Tafola, but doesn't picture him. Here's Chris Broderick, guys. Kind of like, where's Joey? Hi, Joey plays here. He's really good. Yes, Simon.
Show the picture again, please. It's Kenny G.
The perms maybe not quite so tight, but yes, indeed. But I mean, they all kind of look like that. I mean, Harry Conklin's a great singer. Okay, in my notes, I write notes. People, you wouldn't think so. Okay, he's one of those guys that he's, and I mean this with a lot of affection because he's done lots of great work with lots of different bands and projects. Best work with Jag Panzer, in my humble opinion. But man, oh man, that fringe. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that, Harry. Don't do that. It's like, boom. I
Yeah.
mean, but it's fashionable now. He was ahead of the game here. Do you know, he was decades ahead of the game. This straight thing that I couldn't do if I tried is now fashionable, supposedly. But there you go. I digress. The band is centered around Mark Braiodi. I presume that's how you pronounce it. I've never really known. He's the mainstay, and he writes an awful lot of this stuff. This is fantastic. I really, really like this album. I like everything I've mentioned. This is the one that I've gone back to over and over the years. I just think that Conklin's vocals, as I say, he's not the best singer in the world, but certain singers really work for the band that they're in, and he really works for the band that he's in here because he's powerful, he's expressive, he's not frightened to kind of slightly overstretch his own mark every now and again. He has range of things expand over the years, but there you go. There's some really, really great stuff on here. Future Shock, that's fantastic. I love the kind of buzzsaw guitars on Ready to Strike, and there's a rowdy gang vocal chorus thing there, which does kind of hint at a more European thing, but it's in the background somewhere. It's not that kind of happy, happy, clappy, clappy sort of thing. Tyranny is great because they just kind of say to Joey Tafola, would you like to play, Joey? Go on, have fun. Wow, does he have fun? That is a shred solo. It's fantastic. But Shadow Thief is a mix between US power metal and kind of Iron Maiden, and Black is a mid-pace stomper that just leaves you no doubt that they may have heard Judas Priest once or twice over the years. And it all just comes together into a sound that doesn't really copy anybody. Really like this album. It's also not the best, but it's really, really good. So it's the Fourth Judgment by Jag Panzer.
Good band. One of those bands that I don't think ever gets enough recognition. They've been around for a long time, a lot of really solid albums, very underground fan base too, you know.
Yeah, other than that one that I mentioned, which really, I mean, it doesn't just drop the ball, it drops it, stands on it, kicks it, punctures it, and buries it. Everything else comes recommended. Some are better than others, and the newest one is really good too. But they're just kind of forgotten about it. They seem to just bubble underneath.
Yeah.
And I do think it's because that US power metal scene has kind of evolved into something else. Bands you mentioned earlier, like Metal Church and various things, they're kind of viewed as they were a thrash band back in the day. Nobody quite knows where to put all these bands, so therefore Jag Panzer don't really get spoken about as part of what is still a burgeoning power metal scene in Europe.
Yeah. So, Stephen, you talked before about how kind of the 90s was a weird decade and you were trying to figure out like kind of like what style of music you were gravitating towards. It was no different for me. So I was all throughout the 80s, big metal fan. And as the 80s, the second half of the 80s kind of went on, I became immersed in thrash and early extreme metal. And then like when the 90s kicked in, we had a lot of the glam and hair metal bands, that kind of went by the wayside. And in the early 90s, I was kind of like struggling, like what do I listen to now, right? Because a lot of the metal bands that I really liked were changing their style. Grunge was hitting, hip hop was hitting, and all of a sudden I'm kind of like, I need something different. And I latched onto prog in a really big way in the 90s. So by the time, like right around this time, 97 came around, I started to listen to a lot of prog metal bands because Dream Theater was my favorite band at the time. So anything that was kind of metal with some prog leanings, kind of Dream Theater-ish, I was drawn to. And my first exposure to power metal, really, especially some of the bands that we're talking about here, was this next album that I'm going to show here in a second. And the reason I think why I gravitated towards this band is because they had lots of progressive elements, but they certainly were a power metal band, and they took a lot of elements of speed metal, which I listened to a lot in the 80s. And that band is from Finland, and the album is Visions by Stradivarius. So Timo Tolkki, of course, guitar player, heavily influenced by Yngwie Malmsteen and that whole neoclassical metal scene. You got Coltapelto on vocals, one of the great vocalists of this style of music. Jens Johansson on keyboards, of course, formerly of Yngwie Malmsteen's band. You got Jorg Michael on drums, and Jari Kara, blah, 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 whatever his name is, on bass. Really interesting band. And this was my first step into the music of Stradivarius, and I've liked him ever since. Big choruses. I mean, Timo Coltapelto, a really good singer, and I would argue this was really the album where he kind of came into his own. Now that Timo Tolkki left the band a number of years ago, he basically left the other Timo and kind of in charge of the band, and he kind of is like the main guy there now. But blazing lead guitars on this, a lot of great keyboards from Johansson, who does a lot of those similar things that he did with Yngwie on those classic Rising Force albums. These kind of constant back and forth guitar trade and keyboard trade-offs, which of course originated, I think, back with the Rainbow Rising album from the 70s. So a lot of that going on here. Highlight songs on here: The Kiss of Judas is absolutely terrific. You've got Black Diamond, not to be confused with the Kiss song, is total speed metal. You got more like kind of mid-pace crushers, like Legions was really good. And then they do like the more melodic stuff, which, kind of power ballads, right? Power metal ballads. We've seen a lot of them in recent years. Camelot's done them. Bands like what's the other Finnish band I'm drawing a blank on right now? Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But Before the Winter, Coming Home, really good songs, great vocals, lots of atmosphere, lots of keyboards, tasty guitars. To me, I think that Stradivarius kind of falls in that kind of place that's like, it's kind of Yngwie Malmsteen, a little bit of Keeper of the Seven Keys era, Halloween, and like I said, a little bit of Rainbow Rising. That's what you get here. Virtuoso guitars, great vocals, good productions, great album artwork, as you can see. This still to this day might be my favorite Stradivarius album, but they have a lot of really good ones. And it was kind of my gateway to this power metal thing back when it first came out. So, but yeah, to kind of reiterate what you were saying earlier, Stephen, finding out about this stuff, like here in the States, you couldn't get these albums in or CDs in the record stores. So I was buying a lot of this weird European stuff and through mail order, either through Ken Golden's Laser's Edge site, or I had another guy who I met through a friend who had like a big mail order business, and he would send me his wholesale list, and I would like see all this like power metal stuff that I didn't know anything about, and I would just start ordering it just blind. You just order stuff. Oh, this sounds like this. All right, great, I'll get it. And that's how I kind of fell in love with a lot of these bands and really started discovering them. You just take a chance on things. Not like today where you can go listen to anything before you buy it. So, but yeah, I was instantly drawn to this band because of these kind of little musical ties to other things that I was already into a decade beforehand, and it worked. And like I said, it opened up a whole wealth of other bands that I found that I really, liked, enjoyed, and gravitated towards. So yeah, Stradivarius. And I will say I'm really shocked because I almost picked them. I thought for sure Simon was going to, but I almost picked that Ed Guy album, which came out this year as well, which was Kingdom of Madness, which is a really, really good album. So I don't know if they were under consideration or not, Simon, but that's another really good one. Yeah,
They were.
yeah.
They'll be back.
Okay, there you go. Yeah,
I've,
we
I've
have a
got a
lot of Ed
question.
Guy albums that'll come up in the years to come in these in these successive shows, I guess. If everybody likes this format, so I would
I've got
assume.
a question for Simon then. Okay, because obviously, and this is only meant because it's factual. I'm not going to go. "Nah, nah, nah." I'm a little bit younger. Okay, a little younger than you two gentlemen. So for you're saying that kind of hair metal scene, you were lost by that, Pete. I was into that. Okay, because I was
I
a
mean,
little bit younger.
I followed a good amount of
And
bands from
I
it.
was
Yeah.
in. And there's lots of bands that are in that scene that really shouldn't have been. But that's a separate conversation. But for me, the thing that I found with lots of probably all the bands that you two have mentioned is I didn't hear about any of these bands at the time. Not one of them. They weren't really getting covered in things like Kerrang or Metal Hammer, maybe a little bit of Metal Hammer, but not so much in Kerrang or Rock Action Worldwide, which was where I was kind of getting my information. I didn't have lots and lots of friends that were into heavy rock and metal, so there wasn't kind of a huge amount of sharing of bands and tapes and all that kind of stuff. People were coming up to me and going, "Have you heard Korn's new album?" And I was going, "Oh, it's terrible." Okay, so it was a kind of strange time in that sense, and therefore, if it didn't hit the shelves in Gold Rush, which was a phenomenal local record store, and it was just two brothers buying the albums they thought they would sell in their store. If it didn't hit those shelves, well, I just didn't really know about it. So this scene just completely passed me by, and we're probably going a decade, if not more, down the line before I even heard some of these band names and kind of thought, I clearly missed the boat. But by that time, I'm buying a whole lot
Yeah,
of other stuff that's new, so I always meant to go back, never did. How did you know about this stuff, Simon?
It's a really interesting
it
question.
is a good question. Yeah.
It really is. I think with some of them, I remember buying a compilation album of European power metal on the Limb music.
The music, that's
Okay,
right. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
By,
They were
yeah,
they were the label at the forefront of all this stuff. 100%.
okay.
yeah, and then extrapolating out from there. I definitely, and I have no idea I would have done it, 20 odd years ago. So, a Hammerfall live video and thought, oh, that's awesome. But where I would have seen it, I genuinely don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple of friends who were starting to get the drift of this kind of scene that would happen, and they would kind of share the information with me. But like I said, if it wasn't for like some mail order companies that I was buying music from at the time, I don't think I would have heard about any of this because you weren't finding it in the store. But this was, we talked about Hammerfall today. We've talked about Rhapsody. We've talked about Stradivarius. Nightwish was just starting to come onto people's radar, but not quite yet. I would say those were the bands that were initially, Primal Fear is still a couple of years away. Those were really the bands that were starting to get noticed, but it was quiet. It really wasn't until what, Simon, the early 2000s, so a couple of years later, that all of a sudden this kind of music became not the norm, but there were bands popping up all over the place. But it took some of the bands we mentioned today to kind of get that all moving, I think. Kudos to Simon for picking Hammerfall because I would say out of any band we mentioned today, Hammerfall is the band. Well, Halloween, obviously, but Hammerfall, I think, is the band that took that and said, all right, we're going to run with this. And probably the most influential out of any band that we talked about today is Hammerfall. Whether you
Okay.
like them or not, doesn't really matter. They are the ones who really spearheaded this movement after Halloween. This year, Halloween did some couple weird albums in the early 90s, and then they, lineup changes and things like that. But Hammerfall, this whole like kind of like European power metal as we know it, that's Hammerfall right there.
Okay. just interesting. It just came up. I've been thinking about that quite a lot in recent weeks for a variety of reasons, and it just felt like the right show to kind of ask that question on because
Yeah.
you definitely kind of isolated from some of the stuff with hindsight at the time. I just didn't know it existed.
Well, I mean, it's in a weird. This style became started to gain traction at a time where the internet was still kind of in its infancy. So like, it's not like you're going on. I mean, there were obviously these early. George and I were talking about this the other day. The early mid '90s with the internet the AOL chat rooms and message boards, right? These forums where people are talking about this sort of thing. But not everybody was privy to that stuff, right? You had to know where to go to find this. So, and they weren't being featured in a lot of the magazines. So it was word of mouth. It's not like today. Today you could sit and you can list, hundreds of power metal bands because you see them on social media all the time and they're all over. But back then, very, very different. So it's totally not surprising that someone like yourself could have not discovered any of this stuff till like 2003, 2004, 2005, when it's already kind of established at that point. Because it was very underground, really, really underground. And especially here. I don't know about over by you guys, but here, nobody was listening to this stuff. I mean, heavy metal, regardless of whether it's this or death metal or thrash or any of that kind of stuff, it's just not happening in 1997 here. The new metal scene is right about there because grunge is already kind of dead. You mentioned Korn and Slipknot and all this stuff and Stained and all that's just starting to happen. But this stuff is like so far removed from that, like in a major way. Nobody's listening to that here except for geeks like me, right? So this was good. I'm looking forward to doing other episodes of this. It's good when you get
Yeah,
stuff you don't talk about all the time, right?
absolutely. I genuinely couldn't. I mean, as I say, it was as much me, if not more me, than anyone else that went, let's do 1997. And it wasn't until I went away and I looked at my choices that I thought, should I say, actually, I'm not sure I can do this show. And I thought about it long and hard, actually going, guys, can we change the year or do something different? And then I thought, no, there's actually a little bit of a story to tell. And it'll be interesting to see how different. I mentioned to Simon, I didn't think there would be any crossover. And there might have been, Pete, you chose things actually actively to kind of avoid what Simon might have chosen. We didn't
Well,
know.
but I was fully prepared to talk about something else. So it's not like I
Yeah,
changed at the last minute. I kind of thought he
no,
would.
but that's as you say, that's just good show prep.
I
Knowing,
know Simon, right? I mean, it's
and in the same way that I knew that you guys probably wouldn't bring what I brought today, not because we'd spoken about it, just because I kind of knew. Do you know what I mean? So it's actually, I think, made for an interesting discussion, and it makes me more interested to do more of these.
yeah. And I would say if let's say then just speculate. So let's say the next episode we do on this, whenever it might be, we go like 10 years ahead in time. So 2007 or 2012 or something like that. The choices are magnified greatly. So if we didn't really cross over each other today, when there's there's much limited choices, just imagine once we get into the 2000s and the 2010s, because there's so many albums. And granted, you can't listen to everything. I think and I've said this before, I am very picky with the power metal bands that I listen to in recent years. I listen to more like a greater number of bands early on. Now it's like I have my favorites. I kind of stick to them. Every now and then a new band comes out and I'm kind of like, oh, I kind of like that. But I'm probably a little like less inclined to find a new favorite band in the power metal style today than I was like 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. Like I've tried with Powerwolf. Not sure they're really my cup of tea or not. I don't dislike them. Sabaton doesn't really do it for me. But the good thing is there are a lot of great albums by a lot of really cool bands that have come. I mean, look at AFM Records. We'll just use them as an example. We mentioned Limb before. AFM Records to me, that is the power metal label, and they've got such a wide roster of artists. It's like you literally, even if you don't like half of what they put out, the other half is still pretty damn good. So there's like so many. I've been introduced to so many bands I've never heard of before on AFM because they send me all their stuff all the time. So it's like I get exposed to all. I don't like all of it, but still, there's plenty there. So yeah, I think if we do future episodes, if we kind of we probably shouldn't stick like we did 97 today. We should go into the 2000s next. Maybe dip back to the 90s in a couple episodes and just kind of go all over the place and see what we come up with. So. But of course, you folks watching, though, you're going to decide all of this, right? So if folks really enjoyed this conversation an hour and 15 minutes into it because we enjoy doing this. Let us know down there in the comments below. But for next time, Stephen, we're going to get might be a little moody next time, right?
We are definitely going to get a little bit moody. We might even get a little bit blue. Not that kind of blue. Stop that now. Okay, come on now, kids. So we're going to do our favourite, least favourite, and wildcard albums of Moody Blues, of the Moody Blues next time round. So in 2 weeks' time, that's what we're going to do. So a real change of pace from this to something that's much more kind of ethereal, I would suggest. Really look forward to that.
Mellotrons and orchestras, right?
Absolutely, yes. And lots of variety over the years too. Yeah.
And through the magic of YouTube, because I will be on vacation, we aren't waiting 2 weeks to talk to each other. So we'll actually be recording that episode a week from today. Well, you're watching it on Saturday. We recorded on Wednesday. But yeah, a week from today when we recorded this, we'll be talking about the Moody Blues, and we'll have that for you while I am away on vacation for the first time in 3 years. So I'm looking forward to that. So, but yeah, we'll get this done before then. So Moody Blues, next episode in 2 weeks, favorite, least favorite albums. So for all of you, for all of you power metal fans who are watching this episode, you probably don't give a shit about the Moody Blues episode. But our regular viewers who follow us on all the classic rock stuff and everything like that will be very, very excited for this episode. So get your list ready. Start thinking about your 2 favorite albums, your 2 least favorite, and your wild card that's coming up in 2 weeks. And visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. I just looked up and I'm like, so you can tell that it's fall here in New York because it's barely 5:30 here on the day we're taping this, and it's already getting dark outside, as you can see. I was almost ready to go and turn my light on, but then I'm like, we're almost done. Don't need to do that. So anyway, where did I leave off? I don't know. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Thanks for watching, everybody, here on the UK Connection. Let us know what some of your favorite power metal albums from 1997 are and what you think of some of our choices. And we'll see you next time here on the UK Connection with the Moody Blues. For Simon Bray and Steven Reid, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.